An alternative economic standard. I believe that there is not much reason for any set of monetary systems not to interact with and run alongside each other. I've been looking into economics for a while now, and I know some systems that get way more complicated than the simple transactions you hear about in the documentaries presented to high school students. But even then, there are simple cases that I call transaction modeling, where a good is bought by a certain price by V, who then sells it at a higher incontestable price. There are other cases where V is caught in a high-risk environment, whether the set of risks can be known. V sees risks on their assets spike, but they cannot do anything about it, and V may lose all their money. Then, others may say that the net worth of V was diminished, but statistically, the confidence of change in net worth given risk is too low to be consistent with modified values in transactions. This was the case with the American housing crisis. Some of you may inquire, how is the net worth of VM if V was worth S when V was born? Aren't goods supposed to depreciate when they are installed? If you invest enough money into a pickle, the pickle would be worth more than some people. Technically, this argument is invalid because if you put $1 million pickle into a jar of pickles, then is the jar of pickles worth more than one pickle? How does the valuation of an item affect the valuation of its container? Likewise, if something is worth millions, like a coconut is destroyed, then should its value be amortized? Or are its values still worth millions? Or it remains still worth millions? If some investing body invests millions into air, then is that the value of air to somebody else? If George Washington, valued at millions of dollars, dies, but now is a ghost, is his ghost now worth that much? What about his body, his clothes? Statistically, goods cannot be valued at an arbitrary market price because arbitrary market prices, including the arbitration pricing itself, fluctuates with the free bodies market. Free and independent bodies value things for their own reasons, and the market fluctuates at that rate. This causes many headaches for consumers of any kind. It is not logically valid or ethically reasonable to value something that cannot identically evaluate itself. If a TV is sold for $67, is valued at 67K different currency, then it is not of consequence to the TV, but the market fluctuated again. Therefore, goods as physical things not inherent to the valuation process should not be valued. 8. It is possible to value a transaction at a much lower price than the net worth of the item. This is an example. These are pre-World War I Russian serfs. Although they were the driving body of the agriculture of Russia at that time, they were paid little if nothing at all, and they could barely afford to eat what they themselves farmed. Instead, if a marketplace reports an amount of barcode transactions of a product, then there's a demand for that product. Both the outpost and its set of carried products remains in demand. Products and places are rated by demand rather than by risk of transaction. This graph demonstrates how the demand for an investment decreases with the rise of its interest rate. Actually, an institution cannot hope to profit from offering services without contradictorily getting the profits from the consumer. Issuances to consumers in the form of wages, etc., return to the industries in exchange for the same goods and services that they produced. Ironic? It's not the corporations that produce the goods. The people working their wage hours produce the goods. Organizations who already have much more profits from the consumers than they need keep asking the associate masses for profit in exchange for basic things like food or shelter. These people work for industry and are paid by industry. They then pay the money back to the industry that just paid them for the things they need. What is this called? Organizations then, as a pool of money or centralized entity, can spend more money than they have to protect their already more money. This causes the hugest eco disparage where people have little money pay necessarily to corporations who have much more. And corporations can protect their assets much better than ordinary people. When companies, corporations, and countries owe money, this money is recorded as national debt. But if the money is used to pay off the debt, then none will have money to spend. But if the owers of that money they promised never existed, then the debt is reduced. Owers don't owe, and everyone keeps their money where it is. Debt forgiveness efforts are valid arguments because it is provable that money never existed in the first place. That means that it cannot be repaid, demanded, or expected since it wasn't there to begin with. However, it is not a socially deployable tool because it's easier for companies to ask for forgiveness of interest owed to the people than it is for the individuals to ask for debt forgiveness from the corporations. I have a running mule, the running car example. If I transact X amount for a car, is it still worth that much if it's used? Is it still worth that much if it's broken? Are its parts still worth that much if they are broken? How is the car usable if the value goes down upon use? How is a car valuable if it cannot be used? Will the functioning car's value ever reach zero or lower? Is the car worth exactly what I paid at the moment it was bought? How is there even such a thing as negative volume? Something that is pulling money out of the system is a load on the system. When distributors demand money in exchange for product or service, it acts as an appliance that does that thing. When banks do the same thing, it actually makes them loads on the currency system as well. There is no such thing as market inflation, just as how when you plug something into a wall, it does not somehow produce more electrons or get more energy than what came from the wall. Likewise, there is no known battery available anywhere with an infinite load that can store an infinite amount of energy or matter such as electrons or produce more energy or matter such as electrons. There is also no such thing as negative voltage. In reality, once there are no more of the electrons there to carry the force, the voltage is zero. What we have is an overunity economy based on overunity principles that do not reflect and are not consistent with physical laws. It cannot therefore accurately mirror or portray the ecological patterns observed in nature. As a result, we face many disastrous turmoils, including mass extinction and technological stagnation, since our accounting standards are confusing and plain wrong. Early in the reason why economy was invented was for man to be able to track where money goes and how much things are worth. Man would then have a roadmap of how to establish their daily lives for success. But as time moved on, success quickly became just a measure of how much money somebody had, and not having more money became punishable by loss of property, starvation, disease, slavery, jail time, and other forms of humiliation, and poverty in the absence of empathy or dignity or virtuousness. As people with more money were allowed to make more mistakes, despite what they were actually doing with the money, working people suffered while the economy itself thrived. The economy became valued over sentient people. This became very, very notable in two major events, the Chinese opium crisis and the Enron bubble market crash. Here we have a modern European girl, and she is trying to open the gate for a girl who used to live in the Baroque period. This is the difference between the differences in the way we transact money today versus back then. As for modern people, we should understand that money is not consistent with patterns in nature. It is just another flawed man-made system, and it is subject to the whims of natural psychology. In nature, resources are not hoarded for commodity means, but an individual's work is the heritage of the entire community. If work is done, then the government dies. If work is not done, then the government dies. We serve our leaders, and our leaders serve us. The economy is just another system of measure. This is the synergistic way of an ecology. What is it doing? The amortization of money. I have come up with 4 solutions which are simultaneously implementable. One of them is that instead of market inflation, bills are passed that causes the mint to punctually produce more volumes of money into the economy, adjusting the value of each dollar proportionally. Bills are passed where a portion of the current money of value is cancelled by a certain value of debt, and the value of each money unit is adjusted accordingly. Our technical understanding and sophistication is far more advanced from the time money was first conceived. Instead of arithmetic money system where people earn money per hour and spend at cost, people can get a certain amount of certain products for the duration of an employment term at a company. When a person opts for an item, the demand goes up. Betting on demand does not increase the demand, but the betting is its own item. This is called the algorithmic money system. The enterprise family, a genetically engineered race of humans who are marsupials. This picture shows an example of one woman leading many males, some of which are her sons. The male body requires the female in order to exist. In absence of the male body dies. The male body cannot be conceived without the female body. The Garden City. The other solution would be a license that requires a woman to have it or she cannot become pregnant, or she's not allowed. Impregnation of a woman who does not have the license and express consent of this man to do so will be punishable. This measure will allow fewer women to have more children and thus lessen the communication needs between each family. It would lessen the communication needs between each person because each person would be more similar to each other, and the mother would be more likely to be a government officer. Content citations. Image citations. This fin represents 4 things. Can you tell me which 4 things it represents? That's just an end of slideshow riddle. If this slideshow made you think in any capacity at all, please share with your friends. Like, subscribe, join, follow. And please watch my other videos. Thank you.